Welcome to QCC's Face the Region. Face the Region is produced by Quinsigamond Community College to assist our region in attaining educational, economic, and personal prosperity. Welcome once again to QCC's Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. I'm Zip Zipfel, along with a bevy of folks from QCC this afternoon to talk about the green efforts at Quinsigamond Community College. We've got Anita Sirocco, the professor of Environmental and Physical Science, Ed Wright, Ed Wrights, I should say, got you to Wrights, senior student, Brendan Wan, and also Zoe Kroner, correct, the Greenhouse Project Manager. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Is it your first time on the broadcast?
Yes, it is.
I can tell you're excited. Okay. Anita, why don't we start real quick? Explain maybe just sort of an umbrella overview of the green efforts being made here at QCC.
Sure. We just started a environmental science option under liberal arts, so it's a new environmental science program for our students. It became official in the fall, and we already have about 21 students enrolled in the major. So it's a transfer program designed to do your first 2 years at the community college level and then transfer to a 4-year program of your choosing in the environmental field.
Right, and now when we say obviously green, what's some of the subject matter that you guys cover in these courses?
Well, they definitely take some environmental science courses. They take an introductory environmental science course. They end up taking a climate and weather course. They do an earth and space course, and then it's all your biology, chemistry, and math requirements for the major.
Right, and as is applied in everyday life as far as business. Let me ask you this too, are any of you actively involved in the classes now?
Right. Yes, I am.
So what's your experience been so far, Ed, with those classes?
It's actually been a great experience. I've really enjoyed the major. Professor Sirocco really helped me out when I was kind of not sure what I wanted to do and helped open my eyes to the new major. I was actually one of the first group of students to join the major, and I'll be one of the first students to graduate in the major.
Is that, what are you planning on doing with the rest of your life, Ed? It's an easy question.
Well, hopefully I will transfer to a 4-year college and get my bachelor's degree in environmental science, and from there hopefully find an excellent career which I will enjoy and find very fulfilling.
There you go. Brendan, same deal with you?
Well, I'm an international student, so back in my country I used to have a hobby beekeeping with my family, and that actually kind of led me to the environmental science and all the cool thing or kind of devastating thing about the bees. So my plan is to study onto the environmental science and transfer to 4-year university as well, and get some of the experience and some more degrees on that matter, and maybe like help on the field itself and somehow help my own country as well.
Right, so you're over on an educational visa studying here?
Yes.
Oh, great. What do you think of Central Massachusetts and QCC?
Generally, like everyone are very kind to me, so like I'm generally enjoying it. And it's been like 7 months only, but everything I do around here.
I'll give it a few minutes. We'll throw a curveball in as far as the weather is concerned.
Well, we always have something going on. Earth Day's coming up, and one of the student organizations is actually handing out some free herbs, and that's going to be happening on Earth Day itself. And then we have a greenhouse coming up on campus, and Zoe is not only a student in the environmental science major, but she's also the project manager of the greenhouse. So that is coming up, and so everybody across majors on campus is working really hard to make this happen. So we're really excited about that. And then as far as my environmental science class goes, we've been doing a number of field trips and kind of just enjoying all of the different opportunities that are available in Worcester itself.
So Zoe, these herbs that are being handed out aren't the ones that were recently legalized, right?
No, I'm not sure actually, maybe. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, right. So tell us a bit more about the Greenhouse program and your involvement.
Yeah, sure. The greenhouse, the idea came from actually Mary Bailey, who actually passed away, but I know she was out there working hard with a few students who did some independent research and a lot of hard work to get this up off the ground. They had to surpass a lot of challenges when it came to zoning laws and what it takes to build the greenhouse, especially where it's located. So it's definitely a challenge.
Is the greenhouse located here on campus?
Yes, it's located here on campus. It's actually in a secluded area behind a building. So we face some challenges, like the sunlight doesn't hit it, and it's smaller in size. And so the whole purpose of the project is to really teach students and challenge them, okay, so this is what you have, so how can we work with it and what can we make of it? Which can kind of tumble over into life lessons of making use of what you have.
Developing that critical thinking.
Exactly, yes. We're gonna we already have run into problems, and we're still continuously to work together as a team and find solutions, which is very important. We have our first meeting tomorrow, Friday, so we're gonna finally see who our full team and get everyone involved, get some jobs and duties out there, and see what we can make of it.
You're listening to QCC's Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. And coming up in just a couple of minutes, we'll be finding out more about QCC's efforts as far as the environment and keeping everything green when we continue on AM 830 WCRN. All right, welcome back to QCC's Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. Zip Zipfel here, along with, as I mentioned before, a bevy of folks who attend QCC. We've got Anita Sirocco, who is the professor of environmental physical science, senior student Ed Wrights, Brendan Wan, who's an international student studying up on the environment here at QCC, and Zoe Crowner, close enough, the Greenhouse Project Manager. And when we left off in the last segment, we were talking about the Greenhouse Project and some of the challenges that you were facing. But further down the road, I mean, what are the ultimate goals of the Greenhouse Project?
Reconnecting students with where their food comes from, and really teaching people how to grow vegetables and grow plants and care for them. Also, it's very important that all majors can get involved. This is a community project. We need help from all majors to get this, and everyone is getting involved from all the majors to get involved and get this up and running. We have the engineers helping us with the designing. We have the marketing students helping us promote and tell everybody about it. It's definitely a community project.
Now, is that the ultimate goal once it's fully up and running, you know, sustainability as far as providing food on campus or experiments, or what do you think it'll end up being?
I think it'll end up being helping out students in need, anyone who wants to grab. Hopefully we can be successful enough to grow some cucumbers, some vegetables, tomatoes, and just have it out there for anybody who wants to or needs it. Can go ahead and take from it, and also learn from how we actually grew it.
Cool. Cool. Anita, you had mentioned that, talk a little bit about the articulation programs, and as far as it has to do with obviously transferring your credits onto four-year schools.
Yeah, so, you know, the real role of the liberal arts environmental science program is that it's a service program to help students get the first 2 years of a bachelor's in environmental science done at the community college level, and then they can go on to do 2 more years at a 4-year university, and then they'll have their education complete. And obviously, coming to QCC, the advantage is the first 2 years are done at a much, much lower cost. To promote the program, we've gotten articulation agreements with Worcester State University, UMass Lowell, Castleton University in Vermont, and also UMass Amherst. So that means that after the 2 years here, they can transfer and they will be a junior at any one of those universities, and they would theoretically have 2 more years until they got their bachelor's degree. In
your experience, and maybe including some of the schools you just mentioned, who's really on the forefront of environmental science, or is that a major at most major colleges?
It's becoming a major at most colleges. It's really blowing up, and that was one of the biggest motivations for having that at the community college level, to service that population of students like Zoe and Ed who came up. You know, for the past 7 years I've been at QCC, that first 5 years I had a lot of people who would take my environmental science class and say, I really wish we had something here, you know, when I transfer, I'm gonna do environmental science, and they didn't really have an umbrella that they fit into at Quinsigamond. And so that was the whole idea for creating this major, and now they have a home. And it's absolutely been really wonderful. These three are, you know, my star pupils. I think they're gonna have really exciting careers.
Well, you know, that's the thing. Everybody seems so caught up in, you know, IT and computer sciences and things like that, but I would imagine environmental, that's gotta be a growing career choice for a
Absolutely.
lot of kids.
It's got a lot of job security, and you can pretty much live anywhere in the world and pretty much count on the fact that you're gonna make a decent salary. So no matter what your interest is, you can do a variety of things. I actually did have a student who was initially a computer science major and switched into it. And there is room for people who are really good at programming and computers and environmental science, because all of the climate models and predictions we do on global climate change, you know, all of those models are made by people who know how to do computers. So
Are the salaries for occupations in that industry fairly robust?
they're on par with most science majors. Probably the average starting salary somewhere in the 50s or 60s, which is, you know, very decent for a bachelor's degree.
Right. Ed, is that what you're looking for, to do something along those lines? Anything in particular? I know you're already giving back to the community, but it certainly is a noble profession.
So most definitely, this is definitely where I want to go. I've actually already, through the major and through Professor Srocco, had a couple internships made available for me. So I've been seeking interest in there. A couple different aspects, everything from water treatment to nature and forest control. It's pretty great, and I really look forward to one day having a career in this field. I know no matter how much I make, it'll be extremely fulfilling.
Yeah. Is there anything specific to Central Massachusetts, I'm just curious, from your perspective, environmentally, that you're concerned with, just not even being involved in the program, but what you see day to day in everyday life?
I think maybe one of my biggest concerns, and don't get me wrong, Massachusetts has an excellent environmental policy. This is one of the best states to be studying this major. And so I think some of the biggest concerns I see a lot are with just water control, with, you know, poisoning of natural wells, and there's a lot of issues in various towns that has become an issue. And we've, in the major and in the classes, actually had people come and talk about that kind of stuff before.
Is that one, in any of your courses, do you address population growth and its effect on?
Oh, yeah.
That must
Yeah,
be
we talk
huge.
about, I mean, that pretty much boils down, everything boils down to population growth, and we kind of tie that into it. You know, would we be having this conversation if our population wasn't at, you know, 7 billion?
Right, right. Brendan, I was going to ask you too, your home country is?
South Korea.
South Korea. How does the problems in South Korea from an environmental standpoint compare to what we're going through here?
Korea doesn't have any oil deposits, so we don't really have any kind of drilling or the oil pipe situation like what you guys have in like North Dakota. But we do have a lot of like environmental regulations, which are sometimes are sloppy, so there are some issues with the water contamination and like whole environmental issues. And additionally, I'm like really looking into the bees, and the thing called bee colony collapse disorder is like everywhere in the world, and that also is happening in Korea. So it's essentially some phenomena where the bees are dying and disappearing without any particular pinpoint reasons. Mostly, like there are many natural causes, but there are studies that says that human activities such as pesticides are actually affecting it. So it's kind of alarming because most of the bee species we have to produce the honey are very similar species. Like there are multiple families in the bee species per se, but most of them are like one or two families of them. So one dies, it will just spread to all the others. So that's kind of alarming that it actually happens like globally.
Right. Do you, are South Korea's environmental laws stricter, looser?
Some extent it is strict. Like Korea is just about the size of New England, so it's kind of manageable per se. So there are some strict environmental laws that we are grateful of, but there are some of the things like Korea is mostly industry-driven, like company-driven country. So like there are some of the laws which are not really beneficial, like at all.
Right, right. Fascinating stuff. We're talking about the green efforts and the environmental science programs here at Quinsigamond Community College, and we will continue that conversation in just a couple minutes as QCC's Face the Region continues on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. Welcome back once again to QCC's Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. I'm Zip Fell and chatting about the green efforts at QCC with Anita Sirocco, who is the Professor of Environmental Physical Science here at QCC. Students Ed Wrights, international student Brendan Wan, and Zoe Crowner. I hope I got that right, who's the Greenhouse Project Manager here at QCC. Earlier when we were chatting with Brendan about some of the environmental issues they're dealing with in his home country of South Korea, I saw you light up when I mentioned the word pesticide. What, are we in serious trouble here in
Well,
this neck of the woods?
he gave a fantastic synopsis of colony collapse disorder, and there's a number of scientists researching this right now. And you know, one of the common findings that all of them have is that the bees are being greatly affected by the pesticides. So one of the big theories is that the brain of the bee is affected negatively by the vast amount of pesticides on our crops, and that in turn is making them unable to function as a colony. The way that a beehive works is that each bee has a role, and if each bee is not unable to perform its role, the hive will collapse. And so when we think about why these colonies are collapsing, it's because the bees have been unable to perform those tasks because of the effects of the pesticides.
How great a role does the bee play in our sustaining our own lives?
That's a huge role. So at the moment, pollinator species are responsible for 33% of the world's food supply. So we have 7 billion people on the planet right now that we have to feed. By 2050, we're estimated to have about 9 billion people on the planet. So this is not a moment in time where we can be affording to lose our pollinator species, or basically 1/3 of our food supply.
And who's watching the store here as far as that's concerned? Are there, I mean, is it a top discussion in Washington? Or
well, I'm glad you bring that up. So President Obama had actually gone to great lengths to be banning this particular pesticide that's been used since the 60s, which has been researched and found to have neurological effects on human beings of all ages, and also actual brain effects for children. And one of the first things the Trump administration has done negatively to the environment is to remove that ban and allow farmers to continue to use that pesticide. And when questioned about the science, the only answer that was given was, well, we've been using it since the 60s. And to me, that doesn't really cut the mustard, because we used a lot of scary chemicals in the 60s. That doesn't mean we should.
And cigarettes were menthol. They tasted great.
Exactly. The science is in. That should really be doing the decision making, not political interests and financial interests and big business.
So that's always been in play.
Absolutely.
Special interests in Washington. So how, in your experience and expertise, how do we combat that and bring it's same thing with climate change and global warming. It's a political football that gets kicked around all the time, largely by special interest groups at times. So what do we do?
I think there's a number of things. Number one, get educated, right? The planet is all of our homes. We don't have really any place else to go. So I think the more education that we can get on the planet, and the more unbiased information we can get from science journals that don't have a political agenda, people will be able to draw their own conclusions. Really, there's no debate on any of these things. There's just facts and science. And the question is, where do we go from here? The Greenhouse Project is a fantastic small-scale way to show students how important food is. The water that it takes, the climate conditions that it takes, and in fact, the importance of pollinator species, because if we're actually going to get crops out of this thing, we're going to need some pollinator species to do the grunt work for us. And maybe that will help everyone of all majors realize that we can't afford to take any of these resources for granted, whether it's bees, whether it's clean water, or whether it's having a climate that we can count on.
Right, well, again, and not to turn this whole conversation to a political one, but with the kind of, shall I say, alternative facts that get thrown around these days, I mean, doesn't that cloud the issue? Because you hear both sides. Oh, there is climate change. Oh, it's global warming. Forget that. So is it incumbent upon you as an individual, much like in following current events and news day to day, to discern what you think is actual fact, or where do you go to look for unbiased
That's
facts?
great. That's a great question. There is a lot of information out there, and I think, the media makes it seem like it's a debate when really it's not a debate. It's just science, we're not debating, that my hair is black. It's just a fact. It's the same thing, the science is in. 98% of the scientific community is in agreement about climate change, and there's so many studies out there in published and peer-reviewed journals that people have access to at libraries or universities that they can look into that are not coming from any news outlet that makes them question the motives. And I think we have to stop trying to create a debate and start focusing on solutions, because the fact of the matter is the debate's over. Climate change is a fact, and the question is, what are we doing as a collective species, all 7 billion of us, to try to make this better, because this is our home. And it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you're from America, Korea, China, India, we all have responsibility in this.
Don't you think environmental science should be a regular, required, mandatory part of a balanced liberal arts curriculum?
I think it's a part of life. I think if you're a citizen of planet Earth, you should have to take environmental science so that you can use your resources wisely. I mean, we all need these things, and we need to learn and educate ourselves about how we can make small changes to make things better. The most gratifying thing I get out of my career is when I have students from my class tell me, I stopped buying bottled water, or I bought a reusable glass water bottle and that's what I fill it up with, or I bring my recyclable, reusable bags to the
Or my
grocery
towns
store.
outlawed plastic bags and.
Correct,
Yeah.
and it's the small steps. People think when they hear about these problems, they're so big and they're so numerous, I wish I could do something, but I can't. But the fact of the matter is, if you turn your tap off when you brush your teeth, if you bring that reusable canvas bag to the grocery store, you are doing something, you are making a difference. Because when 7 billion of us make those small
7 billion.
changes, it really adds up.
Wow, fascinating stuff. If we had a student listening now who's perhaps thinking about going into environmental science, where should they look to investigate more, or who should they talk to? And I'm sure you are certainly encouraging that decision. It sounds like it, that's for sure.
I mean, it's a great career.
It is.
Obviously, I have nothing but good things to say about it. They can go onto QCC's website, and it is, on the program of study. But additionally, for more information, they can always email envscience@qcc.mass.edu, and that email comes directly to me.
Fabulous. And Zoe, are you still looking for volunteers? Do you need to be necessarily a student to be involved in the Greenhouse project here, or are you looking for volunteers? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we'll take any help we can get. The more the merrier. So anybody who's interested, email the environmental science website, and we'll fill you in on when we have meetings, and definitely.
Right. And do we have any special events, open houses, or environmental science get-togethers in the near future?
There is not one right now planned, but typically at least once a semester I do hold a little open house for people who are in my major to pass out information about the articulation agreements we have. Every day I'm getting contacted by different four-year universities saying we want to partner with you and set up an articulation agreement. And then I have places where students can apply for internships. We have one student who has an internship with the Department of Environmental Protection of Worcester. Ed is potentially going to have one with the Upper Blackstone wastewater treatment plant in Millbury, and Zoe may potentially get an internship with the Tower Hill Botanical Gardens in West Boylston, and I'm sure her greenhouse experience will help her with that. And Brandon may potentially be volunteering at a lab at WPI with a professor there who's actually studying colony collapse storm and the bee situation.
Great, great. You guys, it's been a really fun talking with you, and it's such a valuable and important part of our existence, for crying out loud. We appreciate you being here on QCC's Face the Nation. Our thanks to Anita Sirocco, Ed Wrights, Brandon Wan. Continued success as you pursue your schooling here in the States. And Zoe, you too. Thanks so much for being with us. And we will see you the next time on QCC's Face the Region right here on AM 830 WCRN, full service radio.
This has been Quinsigamond Community College's Face the Region. Join us again next weekend on AM 830 WCRN.